All right, Mr. Harmless here, and we are working on 6-2, practice number 1. And we're going to do these problems together in case you're having trouble with them. Okay, so let's start with problem number 1. This is a parallelogram, it says in the directions, which I did not include here. It's a parallelogram. And we also know that with this parallelogram, because it's a parallelogram, we learned that the opposite sides are congruent. So it means that this side is congruent to this side, and this side is congruent to this side. So a way to label that they're congruent is by putting these little hash marks on there. 1 to show this one is congruent to this one, 2 to show this one is congruent to this one. Now that I know that they're congruent, I can set up my equation. 2a equals 3a minus 5. Okay, so because these are congruent, that means that they're equal. Now, if you're solving this, the best thing that you could do would be to subtract 3a from both sides. And we end up with negative a equals negative 5, because the 3a minus 3a is gone. You get rid of that negative sign. We can multiply both sides by negative 1 or divide both sides by negative 1. Either way you go, you're going to end up with a equals 5. Okay, now we're going to solve this one. 2b minus 1 equals b plus 3. Because they're congruent, that means that they're equal. I would probably start by subtracting b from both sides. If I subtract b from both sides, I get 2b minus b is b. Still have this minus 1. The b's are gone over here, and we get 3. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I end up with b equals 4. So there is problem number 1. Problem number 2. Because this is a parallelogram, we know the opposite angles are congruent, so this angle is equal to this angle. We know this angle here is equal to this angle over here. We also know that these angles that are next to each other are supplementary. Let's start with the ones opposite being congruent. Congruent means equal, so that means the y is equal to the 44. This one we don't have to do any solving, it's all done. The other one we're going to do, I could do y plus x equals 180, or I could do x plus 44 equals 180. I'm going to do the x plus 44 equals 180. I'm going to do that one because, well, I only have one variable then. I can solve for that x by subtracting 44 from both sides. And try to do this in my head. I believe that means x equals 180 minus 44, I think is 136. Hopefully I did that math right. Next problem. All right, now these are diagonals. Diagonals, we also learned, are congruent, or they bisect each other, I'm sorry, which makes each side congruent. This side being congruent to this side, this one being congruent to this one. So 26 and the y plus 1 are equal. And the x minus 2 is equal to the 19. So then we're going to solve these two equations. This one I would just subtract 1 from both sides, leaving me with y equals 25. The other one, I would add 2 to both sides, leaving me with x equals 21. So there are my two answers for number 3. Sorry, the phone was ringing. Okay, back to the problem. Number 4, opposite sides are congruent, which means this side is congruent to this side is congruent to this side. So 9b plus 8 equals 10b plus 1. And I could also say 6a plus 4 equals a plus 14. Opposite sides are equal, so I can set them up as two equations. Let's go ahead and solve this first one here. I would subtract 9b first. I usually go with the smaller of the two that has the variable with it. That way I don't end up with a negative number. If I can, don't end up with a negative number in front of the variable. It just saves me time later. this one will actually work out pretty good because of that 9b. So we have 8, we have equals, we have 1b, and we have 1. And then we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. And so we end up with b equals 7. This one, subtract a from both sides, and we get 5a plus 4 equals 14. And then I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I end up with 5a equals 14 minus 4 is 10. Divide both sides by 5, and we end up with a equals 2. So there is problem number 4 from this assignment. Problem number 5. All right, so do the same thing here. Opposite sides are congruent, or opposite angles. I'm sorry, these are angles. Opposite angles are congruent. This one is congruent to this one. This one, which you don't have anything, is congruent to this one. So we might be slightly stuck here, but let's go ahead and set up what I do know. I know that this equals this. I could set that up, 3x equals y plus 9. But notice I have an x and a y, so I can't solve. And so this one I'll have to come back to. I need to go with the consecutive part, right, next to each other. So I could do these two, right, add these two together to equal 180, but then I still have an x and a y, so I'm not going to do that. Let's add these two together to equal 180. X plus 8 plus the 3x equals 180. Okay, the 3x and the x makes 4x. Okay, subtract my 8 from both sides. I get 4x equals 180 minus 8 is 172. Divide both sides by 4. And I think that's 43, but let me double check. 172 divided by 4 is 43. So we get x equals 43. Now that I have my x, I can plug that x right in there for x. 3 times 43, so times 3, 129. So I get 129 equals y plus 9. Subtract 9 from both sides, and I get y equals 120. All right, last question, number 6. Diagonals bisect each other, which means this one equals this one equals this one. So we get 4x minus 2 equals x plus 10. We also get y plus 5 equals 3y minus 1. So let's solve this one here first. I would subtract x first. I get 3x minus 2 equals 10. Add 2 to both sides, and I get 3x equals 12. Divide by 3, x is 4. This one I'm going to subtract the y. 5 equals 2y minus 1. Add 1 to both sides. 2y equals 6. Divide by 2, and y is 3. So there we go. That's practice 6-2. Practice number 1, right? The first practice for section 6-2. If you have any questions, let Mr. Harmless know. Hopefully this answers your questions. When you're done with the assignment, please bring it up to Mr. Harmless and show it to him. Thank you.